Right. The other dimension to this, which is kind of interesting, that Stacey Herbert, my partner, kind of unraveled, was that, in fact, when this first investigation into the Cambio de Casa and the money laundering went on in around the 2007 period, the Mexican drug cartels effectively shut off the cash, which was the precursor to the global credit crisis of 2007. And it wasn't until 2008, remember, when Hank Paulson was in front of Congress asking for $780 billion, that they, in fact, the only place that they could find available cash was to go back and turn on the cash flow from the Mexican drug lords. And that's how the credit crisis was averted. So these guys, these drug lords in Mexico, is it a far stretch, John Perkins, to say that the cash going through the drug lords in Mexico is, in fact, the only readily available cash in the global economic system that's mostly derivatives and facsimiles of cash? It's not actual cash. Can you say that this is the core economic cash of the globe, based on what your experience is and investigating these things all over the world?
To say that it is the primary driving force, I don't know, Max, whether that's true or not. It certainly is a primary one. I think there's a lot of driving forces here in this system. Certainly, things that are going on in the Middle East are deeply involved too. And whenever we're in wars, that opens another whole door for all kinds of money laundering and other illegal activities that are actually done by our own government institutions and our big corporations. But certainly the narco trafficking activities in Mexico and Colombia play a very large role in this. And let's not forget that we went in and bombed Panama City and back in '89 and took out Manuel Noriega, who was running the country at the time, put him in prison. He's been in ever since in solitary confinement. I believe now he's in France because he knew too much. And it was well established during various proceedings that Noriega had been paid by the CIA millions of dollars as a CIA agent at the same time that he was laundering, that he was running drugs that had a strong connection with the Colombian cartel. This is a fact that came out, and it's well documented. A lot of the other activities in places like Colombia, Panama, Mexico, throughout Central and South America aren't documented. They're much more clandestine. But this has been going on a long time and continues, and certainly has mushroomed during this period of economic recession. We know the banks are doing well. We know Wall Street's doing well. We know the CIA is doing pretty well too, and the military industrial complex in the United States, what I call the corporatocracy, is doing very well.
Now, you mentioned social networking, and clearly during the Egyptian revolution, Facebook was mentioned. They called it the Facebook revolution. And the role of social networking has been key in organizing and decentralizing the revolution so that there's no single head of these groups that the opposition can attack and knock it out. It's all decentralized uprising. But at the same time, curious what you think about this, if you saw this report, that the Pentagon is developing what they call sock puppet software. They create fake online personas to go into these various social networking sites and leave comments and manipulate the discussion by electronically creating an army of effectively avatars and robots that behave like they're humans and interacting on these sites, but they're actually programmed by the Pentagon and the CIA to try to manage the message. So what's happening so there's a war, there's a cyber war. All the problems that we saw in the analog space are reappearing in the digital space. So are the social networking revolutionaries able to deal with the Pentagon in its new digital format? And what do you recommend they do to overcome this?
Well, it is a war. There's a battle going on. There's a battle for the internet. There's a battle for social networking. There's no question about it. And the Pentagon and the CIA can hire very, very competent people, and they will continue to do so. I think we in the United States can liken this to the American Revolution, where even once we declare war and Washington has its troops at Valley Forge, at that very time, There was a huge undercurrent in the United States of what we call loyalists or Tories that were strongly resisting all of that. And there was huge debate going on in the United States. There were a lot of spies. There have always been spies. What you're talking about is essentially a new form of spies and counterinsurgency within the internet. Are we going to win that battle? And we being, guys like you and me who want to get the word out, I hope so. We have to keep fighting it and keep coming up with new methods. There's going to be a battle. There's no question. And once again, though, the fact that battle is coming on so strong that the CIA and other government organizations, National Security Agency, the one that recruited me, are so deeply involved in this, tells us that we're being very effective. They want to gain control. We want to keep control. We're just going to have to stay a step ahead of them, and we got to keep working on that.
All right, John Perkins, we have a couple of minutes left. I want to go into an area that's really fascinating. You're uniquely qualified to speak on this, given your background and your history with the Peace Corps, in living with indigenous peoples, and coming to appreciate indigenous cultures. And you've remarked on how in several of these ancient cultures, this year of 2012, which is coming up, obviously, quickly, is mentioned as a key pivotal moment of spirituality for humanity. It's a broad philosophical topic. I realize we only have a couple of minutes to discuss this, but nevertheless, if you could kind of talk about this a little bit, what you see happening in the next couple of years, and how you feel about that, John Perkins.
I'd be happy to, Max. It is a complex subject, and I'd encourage people to go to my website, johnperkins.org, subscribe to my newsletter, and go to the file on past newsletters, because there's one in there that goes into this fairly extensively. But in short, 2012 is the Mayan prophecy that every indigenous culture I've worked with, and I've worked with indigenous cultures on every continent except Antarctica, where there aren't any, has a prophecy that this is an amazing time for the potential for transformation. The Mayan prophecy of 2012 is perhaps the best known right now because of Hollywood. Hollywood shows these doomsday scenarios. I spend a lot of time with Mayan shamans. I take groups there in December. Again, go to my website to find out more about that. But what we find as we work with these shamans, that none of them has a doomsday scenario. They say this is a time for potential, for extreme change, for human beings to rise to a new level of consciousness that truly understands that we must all come together, that we live on a tiny, tiny spacecraft. And unlike the space stations our astronauts built, there's no shuttles for this one. We can't get off. So we've got to come together. We've got to raise our consciousness to understand that we've got to be sustainable, live in a sustainable, just, peaceful, thriving world for everyone on the planet. This is what the prophecies are about. And the year 2012, December 21st, 2012, is identified because that's when, from the Mayan perspective in Central America, the sun enters the great rift of the Milky Way, what they call the center of the Milky Way. But they're quick to tell us that don't expect anything really spectacular on that date. It's happening now. It began about 10 or 12 years ago. It's going to continue for a number of years to come. It's an era. And that one date, December 21st, 2012, is just kind of a marker point because astrologically it was significant to the Mayans. But this is the time. We're in it and we're feeling it. And everything you and I have talked about so far is about that, whether it's Latin America, the Middle East, what's going on in Europe or in the United States in places like Wisconsin and Michigan, what's going on in the internet, this battle between the CIA and social networkers, what's going on with the drug cartels in Mexico and Colombia. That's all part of this. We are in this time for the potential for transformation, but the prophecies all say that it doesn't happen automatically. We, the people, must make it happen. It must come from us. It's not going to be some savior. It's not going to be an Obama or any other leader that comes along. It's got to be us, we, the people.
All right, John Perkins, author of Confessions of an Economic Hitman and Hoodwinked. And thanks again for being on the edge. And could you give your website address again, please?
www.johnperkins.org. And you can go on there and subscribe to my newsletter, see where I'm speaking and doing workshops and trips. And Max, and also people can Twitter me at economic_hitman. And I'm on Facebook. So please, let's keep up this communication. And Max, I would just really thank you for this good work that you're doing to spread the word. It's so important that we keep the programs like this going out there and reaching as many people as possible.
All right. Well, we'll have to have you on and back soon. That's going to do it for this episode of On the Edge. I want to thank my guest, John Perkins, author of Confessions of an Economic Hitman. If you'd like to send me an email, please do so at ontheedge@presstv.com. Until next time, bye, y'all.